25 pomodoros. It'll take 15 hours. I will be done around 7:30 if I'm successful. And I need to plan it out. I gotta start now. And plan this out. And during my 5-minute break, I'll get coffee.
It was hard to get my head off that pillow at 5 a.m. because that's a lot earlier than I'm used to getting up. But my sunrise alarm helped, and going straight to the couch to plan out the pomodoros was the perfect thing. I wouldn't have had the energy to run around being productive first thing, even if I had planned out all of the pomodoro sessions the night before. So I was actually glad that I saved it for the morning. It also really got me excited for everything I was about to accomplish in the day to come. At least everything I hoped to accomplish, but at this point, I was not sure how well it was gonna go. It was borderline hard to think of enough tasks to fill 25-minute sessions. So to clarify, that is 25 minutes of work followed by a short 5-minute break repeated 4 times and then a longer 45-minute break, which is crazy because normally I feel like my to-do list is so never ending that I could never run out of tasks to do. But by the time I got to the end of the planning session, it seriously felt like I was going to get basically everything done in my life, at least conceptually, but let's see how the rest of the day went. So I immediately got rewarded with a coffee break after that first 25-minute session of planning out the pomodoros. And that was perfect because I know that a lot of times on weekends or days when I get up extra early and I feel like I have all the time in the world to get things done, I get started very slowly. I will start with the coffee and start with things that are just not the most productive, thinking that I have time later to slowly ease into it. But diving right in and then getting a break right away was way better because the first slice was manageable and then I got a reward and then I got some momentum to keep going. That's something I want to try to implement more often on regular days of being productive, even if I'm not doing a challenge like this. So after the planning session, I started out doing chores around the house. I wanted to start some laundry so that it would be finished by the time I got back from work, and I also wanted to clean out my car because going to get a car wash was on the to-do list. I normally don't do chores before work. I just get ready for work and go to work, but it felt really energizing to just get up and start moving and make progress that's visible and helpful for my personal life before even going to work. And it kind of broke the day up a bit in a really nice way. I was worried I'd be tired, but I really wasn't at this point, but that definitely came later. So I timed my breaks perfectly so that I would have time to drive to work and also stop and get a coffee on my way to work. It also helped me get ready for work really quickly because I was trying to stay on track with all these pomodoros. When I got to the office, I just right away got down to focusing and it felt so good to get a lot done so early on. I went across the street to get some breakfast tacos during my next long break, and I felt kind of guilty taking a break of that quality, I'll say, so early in the day because normally I don't. But at the same time, I had gotten more accomplished with my work tasks than I normally do that early in the day as well. So that's one thing to keep in mind if you're doing this. Don't feel guilty about the breaks because you are focusing a lot harder than you normally would be and probably accomplishing a lot more. When I got back to the office, things started to go wrong, which wasn't surprising on one hand because even when I try to do 3 or 4 25-minute pomodoros on a regular day, things always go wrong. I get derailed. So I expected that the day wouldn't go perfectly. What I didn't expect was how random some of the problems would be. In this instance, the ceiling started dripping. There was some dripping of muddy looking water on my keyboard, and I still don't know what it was. My coworker Jake checked the sprinkler for me, but he couldn't find any moisture, so honestly, I still don't know what was going on. In another instance, my coworkers were talking about something that I found very interesting, and it was during one of my breaks, but then my break timer ran out, and I noticed it, and I was so tempted to just keep talking, but I got back to work anyways, even though they were continuing the conversation because I was really determined to make this work. But those are the kinds of things that come up on a regular day that you're more likely to just overlook if you aren't doing a big challenge, I think. Midway through the day, I started to get really tired, like really exhausted. And I think it was a combination of waking up earlier than I'm used to and also just trying to focus so hard all day. It takes a lot of discipline, even if the mental tasks aren't technically that strenuous in and of themselves. Another thing I learned about myself is that I eat practically all day long, at least during this challenge, maybe because I was low on dopamine, and so I had to just keep on snacking. And I even had friends that would check in midway through the day to see how my challenge was going. The work part of the day honestly felt the longest. 8 hours of doing pomodoros, even with breaks, is a really, really long time to stay focused. But I was relieved when the workday was done and I headed out to get that car wash. I was supposed to drive during the break and then get the car wash done in 25 minutes, but it ended up taking 3 Pomodoro sessions. So it took a lot longer than I intended. And that was the first time in the day I actually skipped the breaks. Then I took an extra long break because there was a snow cone place right by the car wash place. So what are you gonna do? Now, part of my motivation for staying on track was that I told my friends I would be available at 8 o'clock. So I wanted to make sure I stayed on track so that my Pomodoros didn't go later than that. That's normally later than I would start hanging out with people on a weeknight, but I really wanted to reward myself with a tangible hangout thing afterwards. Also, so I'd have a very clear deadline instead of procrastinating and messing up the breaks and working until 10 p.m. I was completely exhausted and somehow very energized all at the same time. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it must have been the adrenaline. When I got home, I think I could have passed out in 3 minutes flat. But I honestly didn't want to because I was having so much fun and getting so much done and it was almost over. I had made some progress on cleaning my apartment that morning, but there was a long ways to go. So I finished it up and got a lot more done before my final session of the night. I did 25 pomodoros straight, and I normally have a hard time doing 4 without losing focus, honestly. Most days I decide to do a group of 4 and I don't get through it. So I thought this was not going to go as well as it did. I truly didn't expect it to go so smoothly. But I think because I was so focused on this big challenge, it was kind of what the whole theme of the day was revolved around. So I couldn't really forget that I was doing it or get distracted or make excuses because I had committed to this and it was top of mind all day long. I think that's the secret to why this worked better than it normally works when I'm doing far, far, far fewer sessions. Surprisingly, the hardest part was at work. I think because 8 hours straight of focused like desk work is just really hard for anyone to get through. But I'm glad that I broke up everything by doing some of the active tasks in the morning, followed by the work, and then finishing up with the active tasks. If I could have, if I had more flexibility over my work schedule, I would probably do the more mental tasks first, then break it up with active tasks, then finish with mental tasks. So that the mental tasks get broken up more than the active tasks, because I think for me, those were the harder ones to focus through. If you had a lot of flexibility over your schedule, you could really alternate quite quickly, and that might even be better to do 2 or 3 sessions of mental tasks, then 2 or 3 sessions of physical, and keep alternating like that all day long. If I ever do one of these on a weekend, so it's all my personal tasks, I'll probably do that. I'll probably do some cleaning, followed by some paperwork, and then do some more chores, errands, and then work on my YouTube channel at my desk and kind of alternate like that. Okay, so this isn't something I would do every day by any means, but I think once a year, twice a year, maybe even once a quarter, it would be feasible because I got more done than I probably get in an entire month most of the time, at least as far as personal tasks go. So it's definitely worth it. I just need to motivate myself to do it again sometime. And I really think you should try it. Even if you do a slightly smaller version, like 8 or 12 sessions, just try it and see how it goes. I really think you'll be glad you did because it's almost so hard that it's fun instead of being so hard that it's just hard, if that makes sense. Here are some tips if you decide to do your own challenge. I would say plan the pomodoros ahead of time, even if it's the first session of the day. It could be the day before or the first pomodoro session of the day. I think that should be able to count as a work block. But if you plan them ahead, it's going to be 1, very motivating to see how much you could get done in the whole day. And 2, it'll prevent you from kind of copping out and doing easier tasks than you otherwise would have. For example, let's say you really have to get laundry done. So if you plan it ahead, you're definitely going to put that on the list of 3 sessions of doing laundry. But if you didn't plan it ahead in the moment, if you hate laundry, you might not feel like doing it, so you won't do it unless you pre-committed to it. So I think that's the benefit of it. And when you're focused on doing these sessions so quickly, you honestly don't have time to figure out what you're gonna do next. You need to have it written out and pre-planned so that you can just pick the task right off the list and get to doing it. I also think it's beneficial if you can find time to track what you did each session and quickly how the session went. Give yourself a focus rating. That'll kind of keep it top of mind that you're trying to hold to a high standard. But if you start to run out of time or get behind on the breaks or your schedule, I would say skip those for a minute until you get back on track. Do not skimp on the breaks. Even if you feel like you don't need it and you're really involved in a task, try as hard as you can to stick to the breaks because I promise you, you're not gonna be able to focus for 15 hours straight without breaks. So you might as well take them so that it actually goes well and you can complete the full 25 sessions or however many you intend to do. Otherwise, it's just not gonna happen. And if you do have to adjust, like the way I did with the car wash, it's not a big deal, but try to even compensate by giving yourself a longer break if you do, but try not to if at all possible. Don't just work through breaks thinking, oh, I'll take extra later, because then it's hard to keep track of and you'll get burnt out. And it's just better to take breaks before you need them instead of waiting until you really feel like you need them. My last tip is to plan something very fun for after you are all done with it and plan it at a specific time. If you think you're gonna be exhausted after doing 15 hours of Pomodoro sessions, you're probably right. And if going out with people isn't really your idea of fun after doing that much work, then just plan to watch a show and have some snacks or just something really rewarding, but try really hard to know what time you're quitting and stick to it well enough that you will be done by that time. Doing things with other people can help hold you accountable, but if you just want to be alone, you can probably work it in and just try to be accountable to yourself. Or maybe decide to text a friend when you're all done and tell them, I'm gonna finish this by 8, I'm gonna finish all the sessions I plan to do by 8 o'clock or whatever time that is for you so that you actually stop, even if you plan on relaxing the rest of the night at home. If you're gonna try this, any version of this, even if it's 12 sessions or 8 sessions, let me know in the comments. I would love to hear about how it goes for you. And I'm also going to start doing some coaching and accountability. So if you want to check that out, it is in the description below. I would love to help you design your own plan for this and knock it out yourself. Doing a challenge like this is one way to accomplish a month's worth of work in a single day. But if you want to accomplish 3 months of work in about 1 month, then check out this video on why I stopped texting for a month and how it went. Spoiler alert, it went pretty well.